Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the State of Dallas podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening, guys. Got a jam-packed show for you guys as SMU is coming off a dominant 55-0 win over Temple. We'll talk about that. The Mustangs do face Tulsa at 11 a.m. Central on ESPNU Saturday for their homecoming game and looking to get bowl eligible for yet another season. This is for SMU. Obviously, one of their goals to get bowl eligible, but the expectation is this year to play for an AAC championship. So while they could take a really good step in the right direction to accomplishing the things they set out to this season, they have to keep the momentum going beyond this weekend. But let's go back to Philadelphia on Friday night, the second largest road shutout in program history and the largest since 1978. SMU's been on a streak, outscoring their opponents 120-26 in 3 conference games this year. Now, they faced Charlotte, they face East Carolina and Temple now, 3 of the kind of bottom feeders of this league without a doubt. But for SMU's defense, they sit atop the AAC in multiple categories: total defense, scoring defense, pass defense, I believe red zone defense, and they're number 13 overall in total defense nationally. So Scott Simons' group is playing at an elite level. SMU got a punt return for a touchdown from Roderick Daniels. He was named the AAC Special Teams Player of the Week for that. And it was the first SMU punt return since 2013 for a touchdown. So this is the continued maturation of this program and this season in particular. And you have to give credit to the offense too, because yes, SMU's defense has been playing at an outstanding clip, but it's now become kind of a common thought with this team that you're going to get that. SMU's offense has kind of been, stop and go at points of this season, but against Temple, one of the worst teams kind of in the country right now, they were able to get things going. Preston Stone had a really efficient night. 8 receivers caught passes once again, or at least 8 receivers caught passes once again. So they're spreading the ball around. They got contributions from Jordan Hudson, Jordan Curley, Jake Bailey. Keyshawn Smith has been playing well lately. This is an SMU team that is starting to look very confident, and Preston Stone, most importantly, is coming off of his best game of the season, and that's big for Mustang fans.
I think I'm definitely, as conference play has gone on, as the offense as a whole, we've continued to execute better. I definitely felt really comfortable playing last game. Felt really good about our game plan, and like I said, we were able to execute. We didn't shoot ourselves in the foot, and especially once we get going early, it was easy to just keep building off that early momentum. And it's such a blessing to have the defense that we have. To be able to, if things go wrong on one drive, we'll get the ball back in just a couple of minutes. But as a whole, I feel like we played really well.
So for SMU, that is the biggest news that kind of came out of last week is Preston Stone being efficient, being able to find his footing in this offense, and led this group. And they played a bunch of backups last week too in the end, but they had 563 yards, 35 first downs. They owned time of possession, 35:02 to 24:58. Stone finished with 64% of his passes completed, 23 of 36. And there were a couple drops that could have been touchdowns, a couple touchdowns, I think. And then a couple really just routine passing plays that were left out there here and there. So they recovered from an early fumble. Preston Stone went on to tie his career high in passing yardage in that win and had a rushing touchdown as well. Good keeper, which kind of was a redemption call after the fumble on the opening drive. And I think the way Preston Stone has been talking the last couple of weeks with the media, he's feeling more confident. This coaching staff is getting him to play within the offense just a little bit more. And honestly, that's kind of what is needed to happen. It's just needed to take that come on, just hit the check down, hit the short, curl route, take what the defense gives you. And oh, by the way, when you get opportunities to hit the big play, that's there for you. Go take it. Get those opportunities and make the most of them. And they were able to do that. They drew some pass interference calls against Temple, SMU caught a couple deep shots down the field. Those were all really good things to see happen. And Jordan Hudson, Jake Bailey, Romello Brinson, Jordan Curley all made plays for SMU against Temple, which was great to see, but especially for Jordan Hudson, the former 5-star transfer from TCU. He was a star at Garland. The big thing when he was coming out of high school was his competitiveness, his ability to produce in competitive situations. He did that. He had 2 touchdowns on the night. I believe he ended up leading SMU in receptions, or tied for the lead in receptions. And, that is what we've kind of been waiting on. We knew the talent when he came in. We knew what he could bring to this offense. And if that's the type of Jordan Hudson we're going to see down the stretch, that's big for SMU.
Yeah, it always clicks differently for everybody. But I think the last 2 weeks, even in practice, I know East Carolina, it didn't show, but he had a great week that week. Like, we felt like I kind of thought he was going to break out that week. But it just was a week later. But just the consistency, the approach, the mentality is getting better and better every day. And it was good to see him kind of have a game the other night like we know he's capable of, and I think he'll have a lot more of.
And look, SMU is starting to trend in the right direction offensively. They are, and there's still work to be done. Don't get me wrong, but we did get a peek into the future of what SMU is going to look like when Kevin Jennings got his opportunity last week. Was able to he flipped on a jet flip, got Jordan Hudson his second touchdown, and was able to capitalize on that. But he also kept one for a rushing touchdown as well. Kevin Jennings is a really, really nice piece for SMU for the long-term future. Not only is he from Dallas, prepped at South Oak Cliff, won a state championship, but he's just so cool, calm, and collected. He's got a big arm. He made a throw over the middle that was outstanding, rolling against the grain, throwing back across his body. And SMU played, I think, all 6 of their running backs in that one. Kamar Wheaton was back in action. Even Zane Miners got some burn. Tyler Veen. I mean, it was a dominating performance, really start to finish for SMU. And that's the type of game that this program really needed to have and to take when it's there. We knew going into that game that Temple was down. They'd given up 40 points each of their last 4 games going into it. Well, their 5th straight loss, once again, 40-plus points. SMU getting a special teams touchdown from Roger Daniels. Chris Adamora, the linebacker, nabbed an interception late. So all those things are really, really good to see if you're SMU. That's what you want to see overall from a team like that, a team that clearly had the upper hand going into it. And it's so much of the time, and I know I'll say this, that I judge each game individually from a preview standpoint, from a recap. There are also overall trends, like the run game struggling against East Carolina. That's not something that has really happened too much this season. But going into games when SMU is facing an overmatched, outmanned, down opponent, sometimes we see them play with their food. Recently, when they've been good enough to play with their food. For them to come out and just be that dominant was really, really good to see. And it's only kind of another confidence booster for this team. They have everything ahead of them. It was another midweek kind of game. They played against East Carolina on Thursday. Then they went to Temple on Friday in a completely empty stadium, but still on ESPNU with WNBA being over with. And for SMU to go out and perform that way was really, really important for the growth of this team. It shows how mature they are. I don't care how bad Temple has been. Good teams do exactly what SMU did to Temple. And they beat them every which way. I think Temple ended up playing a second quarterback in the second half. And granted, E.J. Warner was out for Temple. That changes things. He's a good quarterback. He doesn't have much around him, but he's a good quarterback. But even I saw, I think, a player or 2 from Temple enter the portal today. So things are not going well there. But that's why SMU needed to go out and have that type of a game. And, oh, by the way, Scott Simons, his group, continue to do what we expect them to do. And when Rhett Lashley hired him, this is the type of performance that they were looking for. Last year was tough. It was in the hundreds. It was not good, but it was a personnel thing. It was a growing pains thing. They didn't really work on tackling as much as they should when they first got there. They wanted to work the defense and the scheme and kind of hope for the best. But now you're seeing when Scott Simons gets his plan in there, how to develop players, how to bring talent in. The whole coaching staff deserves a lot of credit, but as Scott Simons will tell you, it's all about the players. They've got to go out and do the job. And that's also why he's not satisfied. He knows with an offense like SMU that likes to roll, likes to move quickly, that he has to be on his game from subbing, from making sure players are rested and not out there gassed because maybe SMU's offense wasn't producing like they were, let's say, at East Carolina. Those are all things that he has a really good feel for. And when Rhett Lashley looked back on hiring him this week, that was one of the things that stood out to him.
Yeah, that was honestly, the real three reasons I hired him is one, I did know him. And we'd only worked together 1 year, like 10, 12 years ago. So, but there was enough familiarity. I knew who he was and he knew who I was. Two, his track record, of having top 15 defenses. But three, he had been with people like Hugh Freeze and such that, having an offensive coach who wants to play fast and be aggressive wasn't something that he was foreign to. And so I felt like those things made a lot of sense.
SMU's top 20 in college football in third down percentage defense. They rank 11th there. Defensive touchdowns 7th. First downs allowed 18th. Pass yards allowed 11th. Red zone defense 5th. Scoring defense 9th. Team sacks 11th. Total defense 13th. SMU's averaged a margin of victory of 31.3 points per game in conference play. This is a defense that's playing with a ton of confidence, and they're going to face a Tulsa team that is, once again, down. But Rhett Lashley has a lot of respect for Kevin Wilson and what his coaching staff can put together, especially when maybe this is a motivated bunch to come in and get back on the right side of things after a 42-10 beatdown at the hands of Rice.
Coach Wilson, he's good. He's been good on offense everywhere he's ever been. They got two quarterbacks. Braxton was hurt, allowed the other young man to play really well, I thought. Now they got two guys that are very similar. They can really run the football as an offense, and the quarterbacks are a big part of that. But they still know how to hurt you throwing the football. They've had several games this year scoring in the 40s and scoring a lot of points. So anytime an offense can do that, they're capable of breaking out. So we got to, like every week, we got to stop the run. We got to limit explosives and make them drive the field. But I think stopping the run specifically this week will be maybe a little bit more of a challenge than it's been the last few weeks. So it'll be good to see how we respond to that.
Yeah, one thing last week from Temple is SMU has a travel squad like every team. So they got to play some backups, but it wasn't like the offense where they kind of emptied the bench at the end. And even Alex Padilla got in at quarterback for SMU. That defense was still out there making plays. Toward the end of the game, I mentioned Chris Adamora, one of the linebackers, nabbing an interception. SMU's grabbed a turnover in each of the last 3 games, which is a good thing. They can keep that going. That was something that Rice took advantage of early against Tulsa. They turned the ball over 2 times early, resulted in 14 points. That got things going in the right direction for the Owls. And SMU needs to keep turning the ball over. That's really, really important. I think it gives the SMU offense more opportunities, obviously, but that gives them, more importantly, those opportunities to build the confidence that we talked about earlier in the podcast. So this defense is playing lights out football right now. There's probably going to be a time where they maybe struggle here and there and the offense has to pick things up, but it really hasn't shown too much of that. There's been a drive here and there. There's been moments, but like they showed on the goal line stand against Temple, they can bear down and really put together a strong performance when their backs are against the wall. And that's really important. So Tulsa, they do have 2 quarterbacks. They have Braylon Braxton, who SMU fans saw last year. They also have Cardell Williams, who will be back there as well. And Braylon Braxton led the team in rushing last week against Rice. That was a Thursday night loss, again, 42-10. Just a really, really rough showing for Tulsa, and a team that's now 3-4 overall, 1-2 in league play. They battled back to make it a 14-10 game towards the end of the first half, but Rice got a score to make it 21-10 at the half. And then from there, the Owls scored, basically they scored the final 28 points of the game and were able to come away with the win. JT Daniels led an offense that put together over 550 some yards of offense. I think 563 is what they finished with, 512. And just on 68 plays too. So 7.5 yards per play is what Rice averaged. Meanwhile, Tulsa, 64 plays, 294 yards, 4.6 yards per play. And it just wasn't pretty overall. And the thing about Tulsa is they have enough athletes that if you don't show up, if you don't play well, they can beat you. This is a proud team that is going through some changes still with Kevin Wilson taking over that program, moving on from Philip Montgomery. But they have not been able to put things together really offensively overall. They did beat Temple 48-26. But other than that, I'll run down the list for you. They beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 42-7 to open the season, and then lost a combined 109-27 between Washington and Oklahoma. Obviously, those are two teams that, have offenses that can cook. But then they snuck away on the road with a 22-14 win at Northern Illinois. And then lost 20-17 to Florida Atlantic on the road. And they've lost 2 straight now. So SMU's facing a Tulsa team that, just watching them this week in their press conferences, they're trying to find a way to put things back together and piece together what is a season that is on the brink of falling apart. They've still got a chance to maybe make a run at bowl eligibility, but they'd have to beat certainly SMU. They've got 5 games left, but they've got Charlotte, which they'd have a good shot to. They also face Tulane on the road. They face North Texas at home, and then East Carolina. So it'll be a little dicey for the Golden Hurricane to make this happen, but they'll have a shot. And part of that is because they have athletes that can make things interesting for you. Leading tackler last week, Kendarian Ray, 15 tackles and a quarterback hurry, is a really, really impressive 6'3", 213-pound safety for them, who's a grad transfer from, or a graduate 5th-year player or whatever from Brenham, Texas. So they've got some Texas flavor to them without a doubt. And two of the guys that they had up for media this week are from Texas, from the Dallas area. And those guys are going to be looking to do what Tulsa did to SMU 2 years ago in Sonny Dykes' last game. And SMU was, I believe in that one, they were ahead and fell apart to lose. And, Sonny Dykes' last game, I remember watching that one. It was raining. It was nasty. Everybody knew Sonny Dykes was on his way to TCU. And I would say a good portion of the players from that game are still on this roster. And this team has bigger goals in mind, but don't let that fool you. This is probably in the back of their mind overall. And that's why it's so important to, once again, we talk about coming out fast. And what does that look like? Well, defensively, we've seen what they could do. They get stops. They get the ball back to the offense. That's how they play. They bend a little bit. They make you earn every yard. That's the staple of Scott Simon's defense, is limiting those explosive plays. And for the most part, they've done a really nice job of doing that. And on the flip side of things, SMU's offense last week was going down the field looking like they were going to score and open things up early on, but they fumbled the football. And, it was one of those plays you watch it and you're like, geez, like really? But just kind of a bad exchange situation. I think Preston Stone second guessed pulling it or giving it, whatever it was, and the ball ended up in the hands of Temple. This week, you're at home. You got an early 11 a.m. kick. It's probably going to be a little gloomy around Dallas. They've got there's a little bit of rain kind of in the forecast, maybe that morning. But this is an SMU team that is very mature, and I've hammered that on this podcast have hammered it at ontheponyexpress.com, where we cover the team for On3 Sports. And I think for me, watching how this team goes about getting better each week, since the East Carolina game, SMU's offensive line, they stepped up and they went a little bit more physical in practice, hitting a little bit more with their scout team and maybe not walking through things as much, even in individual drills, which during the season you're kind of trying to protect guys here and there. But that keeps going. The wide receivers, they were challenged by Rob Likens. Hey, somebody needs to step up and give us something here. Preston Stone was challenged by the coaching staff to take a little bit more of what the defense gives them. The running backs, they've had to kind of find their track and get on, back on track after that East Carolina game. Defensively, the whole mantra for that group is have fun, play hard. And to have fun, you've got to get stops and you've got to fly to the ball, and they call it swarm. And they've done that so well this season that you've got to respect what they have put together, because it is a defense that for so many years, SMU has not been good defensively. They haven't been that team that would even strike fear in you, or even be able to kind of be relied on. Hey, got to go get a stop here. This is it. Nope, no chance. And to change that culture, it takes time. It takes good coaches, it takes good players, and it takes everybody buying in. And when you bring in guys like Jonathan McGill, Charles Woods, Ahmad Walker, Jordan Miller, Elijah Roberts, guys that want it, and others, and coupled them with the guys that have been, a part of some of those groups that have struggled through the years, that's how you get it done. And I said this last year, SMU didn't have the depth. They didn't have talent at certain positions. And because of that, they were not good at all. And so I think the world of what they've been able to do, and obviously replicating it come 2024 is going to be a tall task, but they do a really nice job of playing their fundamentals, and they've been able to improve. And again, the competition level is not where you'd want it to be by any means. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very different playing a team like Campbell versus what they're gonna even face against Tulsa. They're gonna have to tackle better. They're gonna have to put together a more respectable effort. Even though last week's effort was good, you're just going to have to be that much more locked in when you're playing a team that has a little bit more, um, more athletes that can challenge you and challenge you defensively to make hard tackles and to make plays where you know for the past 3 games there's been a little bit here and there, but there hasn't been that much in terms of really having to bear down and play teams that have that ability to really threaten you game in, game out. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how SMU responds to success. And that's why it's so key that SMU, I think this week, has special teams in order once again. They got the punt return for a touchdown from Roger Daniels. Colin Rogers hit another long field goal, 47 yards against Temple, and is really starting to build some confidence. They obviously didn't have to return kicks too much, but you'd like to see, if they do, them improve that direction of their special teams. Punt return, you want to obviously continue to see success like they had last week against Temple, and they didn't really punt maybe a couple times in the game. So it is a game that if you creak the door open for Tulsa, they're going to find ways to build confidence. And they're a proud team who has been able to put together some wins. They're in a tough spot right now, backs against the wall, and they're going to want to come out and play one of their best games of the season to get back to 500, to right the ship. And so SMU is going to have to start fast. I think special teams are going to be important. And from there, you just got to stick to your game plan. Defensively, do what you do. Offense, they have to stay within that offense, like we saw glimpses of what can happen when that happens against Temple. So I think SMU is going to win 45-13. It's a 20.5-point spread. The over-under is 57 in this one. But look, it could be a little sleepy with that rain in the area, but SMU has to keep this thing rolling and get bowl eligible. Check off another goal of for this season, and we'll see how it goes on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central on ESPNU. Be sure to subscribe to the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Podcast Network, the Republic of Football. Be sure to check that out. And also check out my work. I'm Billy Embody. I cover SMU for On3 at ontheponyexpress.com. We'll be back next week to recap SMU's homecoming game against Tulsa. We'll see if the Mustangs get bowl eligible on Saturday. Thanks for listening to this edition of the State of Dallas podcast. Catch you next week.